Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Sunday evening. In today's episode, what we'll be discussing is Detroit Pistons versus the Houston Rockets, post game reactions, players that stuck out, talk about the quarters. And then to wrap up the podcast, we'll be discussing Trajan Langdon and his comments with the interview he had with NBA TV, Greg Anthony. And there were two players that he talked about, Jaden Ivy and Malik Beasley. So we'll end the podcast with those. But let's get into this post game show, you guys. So to start off the first, Tolu Smith and Donis Jenkins were very impressive to me. I thought they really set the tone, not only offensively but defensively. They were very active tonight. Donis Jenkins to me is the MVP of this game, but it's just me. I thought he just had a really solid overall game. Chaz Lanier was hitting his threes. He seems a little bit more relaxed. I mentioned to you guys on Friday that I thought just the nervousness and the nervous energy kind of got to him. And that's to be expected with rookies. He looked way more laid back, relaxed today, and was making just really good decisions. Defensively, he had some plays, had a couple of passes that I was impressed with. So good to see him a little bit more relaxed and just, playing his game out there. Ron Holland in the first kind of showed off his dimes a little bit. He had a couple of lobs to Tolu and some other teammates, and he looked good out there. I mean, the first game we saw his ability to get to the free throw line and score, but today it was more of just I'm going to pass, and he still had over 15 points tonight, but he looked good out there. The Pistons defense forced 6 turnovers on the Houston Rockets, and they only shot 30% from the field. That's why the Detroit Pistons were able to get out to a 27-14 lead to end the first quarter. To getting into the second quarter, you guys, Rockets came out aggressive. That's to be expected after you get embarrassed in the first quarter by, the Pistons suffocating defense. But, Pistons were forced to take a timeout after just over a 10-0 run, and the Rockets kind of got back into this game. And most of it was because of Reed Shepherd and just him with his deflections and his defense. But I think the one thing with Reed Shepherd that a lot of people are probably going to be discussing and talking about is the complaining to the officials. I think was just really annoying as a fan watching the game. I mean, this is summer league, right? This is a chance for you to work on your game. This is a chance for you to try stuff maybe that you don't get to try maybe in the regular season or whatever you want to use the summer league for. The fact that this was a game where both teams went to the free throw line, I think 25 and 27 times respectfully. That's kind of outrageous for a summer league game. I would have thought this was a regular season game and it's fall time. It's July, you guys, July 13th as I'm recording this podcast. And we got players complaining about foul calls, and Reed Shepherd was the main cause of it. But it didn't really matter. It didn't. Pistons and the second quarter, 55-38. The complaining really didn't, help the Rockets. I think it was more of a distracting thing with him. And I got a Reed Shepherd take, but I'm going to leave it in the chamber because I'm not going to get cooked right now by Rockets fans because I know how they are. So coming out of halftime, Bobby Clipman, playmaking looked good, started hitting his shots. He hasn't really had a summer league where I'm like, wow, he's kind of had an okay summer league. I'm expecting some bigger things with him for a majority of this summer league. Hopefully he can have some better overall games on both ends of the court. But the Pistons extend their lead over 20 plus. They end the third quarter 75-58. And I didn't write anything for the fourth quarter. I just didn't because the game was over. Second unit played pretty much the entire fourth quarter. Saw guys like TJ Bickerstaff out there, Sakai Ziegler, and others. But I mean, it's just pure domination by the Detroit Pistons in this one today, you guys. So they win the game of a final score of 98-83. Now, I mentioned on Friday, if you do want to make the Summer League playoffs, it goes by point differential. So the Pistons have had back-to-back games where they have won games by multiple points. That will help them in the Summer League playoffs when they start seeding teams. And I think we'll know by the third game whether or not, or not whether or not, where they would be seated in the Summer League playoffs. But I don't even know who we're going to see in the third game. Don't know if Ron's going to be out there. Don't know if they're going to be playing Bobby because sometimes a lot of NBA teams will kind of sit their guys out, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, there's one player I do want to discuss in particular with today's game, and it's Donis Jenkins. I think there's a real shot he can make the roster. And let me explain why. The Pistons do not have a conventional backup point guard right now. Last season, it was Jaden Ivy. He was staggered with Cade, so Jaden Ivy would lead the second unit. Obviously, we didn't get to see Jaden Ivy. We only saw him 30 games this season. And then it went to Marcus Sasser, and then Trajan was forced to trade for Dennis Schroeder. Now, I do understand Jaden Ivy is coming back. Trajan had mentioned that he envisions to see Jaden Ivy and Karis LeVert, kind of have that responsibility to be the backup point guard on this team. But I've been so impressed with Donis Jenkins, and I know it's Summer League. But if you want to carry, let's just say he's a third string point guard, I think there's a real chance that he could make the Detroit Pistons roster. He's only 23 years old. If he continues to have strong outings in the Summer League, going into camp, preseason, I think the Detroit Pistons can convert him to a two-way contract to a regular NBA contract. I've been so impressed with him, his ability to just pick his spots, his pace. You look at the box score, he had such an efficient night on 23 points. I've just been really impressed with him. I was impressed with him last summer league with his pace, and I think he's gotten a hell of a lot better from last summer to this summer. And maybe he is a backup point guard solution for you. That way, you don't have to have Karis out there. You don't have to stagger Jaden Ivy, where he could just kind of be. Those guys can be fresh, and Karis can kind of just play his natural role, and that way you don't have to kind of have your forward, play backup point guard. Just the conversation. We'll keep an eye on it. I'm sure we'll have discussions about it when we do have guests on this podcast, but just keep an eye on Donis Jenkins this summer. You never know. Now, I mentioned that we were going to be discussing Trajan Langdon. So he was with NBA TV on Friday. And there were two quotes in particular that I wanted to talk with you guys and just give my overall thoughts and opinions on. Now, the first one was a Malik Beasley. Biggest elephant in the room when you talk Detroit Pistons right now is, losing Malik Beasley was a huge loss. I think we could all agree there. Now, this was a direct quote from Trajan Langdon, and I'll read it to you guys. If you're watching live or listening on the audio side, it says, quote, "We thought Malik would come back, but there's always a chance that you're not going to get that guy. Unfortunately, there are different, reasons happen that were out of our control. We were ready to pivot when that time came. I thought we did a decent job of getting, the difficult situation we were in." Now, Trajan is very careful with his words. When he says reasons, the reasons are the gambling allegations and the pending lawsuits against Malik Beasley. Okay. And we know those are still ongoing. There has been no updates in any of that. So it's still kind of a wait and see approach with Malik Beasley's camp. If he's going to continue being allowed to play basketball in the NBA, and if he does sign with an NBA team, who will it might be? I don't know if it's going to be Detroit. It could be a whole nother team. But Trajan said, once they learned the news, they were ready to pivot. They were ready to shift their focus to somebody else. And we saw Karis LeVert get that MLE. He got the 2-year MLE. We saw them do a sign and trade for Duncan Robinson. I think Trajan in this front office having a plan B and being transparent, saying, once we learned this news, we were really ready just to move on and look for another option outside of Malik Beasley. And I think we can all agree that losing Malik Beasley is a huge loss. It really is. Getting a guy or trying to replace a guy that made over 300 three-pointers, was a good locker room vet, and was one of Cade's, you know, favorite options to pass to. That is really hard to replace. Duncan Robinson is that motion shooter. He's had seasons where he shot and made over 200 threes. I believe he's had seasons where he's made 250, 270. I believe he made 190 this past season. So it's going to be really hard to replicate that type of production out of one player in the historic season that he did have. But I really respect the transparency here with Trajan saying, hey, we had to pivot. We couldn't sit on our hands. We couldn't wait for these allegations and these lawsuits to end, because if we did, you know, we might not have a Karis LeVert or a Duncan Robinson. So I thought that was interesting by Trajan, talking with NBA TV, Greg Anthony, kind of talking about how, you know, the news was unfortunate and they had to move on. Now, the second quote that I wanted to touch on and talk with you guys about is actually Jaden Ivy. Now, we haven't officially gotten a Jaden Ivy uh, update from the Detroit Pistons, and obviously with the season ending, you probably won't. But Trajan said this about Jaden Ivy, quote, he looks good out on the floor now. He's ready to go. We're doing vet workouts here, and he looks really good. The best he's looked since coming off that injury. So we're excited to have him back. He's going to be a big part of our team on both sides of the ball. So there's a couple things in this quote that I wanted to discuss with you guys. I think the first thing is he looks good on the floor. So he's obviously got cleared for 5v5 working out with the Pistons right now. If you guys watch the games, you see Jalen Dern, Isaiah Stewart, Tobias. So they're just not chilling in Vegas. They're actually doing workouts with these summer league guys. They're doing 5v5 workouts, staying in shape that way, working with the coaches out in Las Vegas. So Jaden Ivey is out there working with the Detroit Pistons. So he's been cleared to compete and get back into practices. So that's the first thing, because they're doing vet workouts. The second thing, Trajan said this is the best he's looked since coming off that injury. Now, Jaden Ivey, before he had that injury, I thought he was really ready to turn the corner. He was averaging 17 points a game. He was shooting over 40% from three. He was really looking like a second option next to Cade Cunningham. And that's exciting that Trajan, saw him work out, saw the work that he's been putting in, and saying that he looks good. I think a lot of us were really concerned with the injury and if he would be able to have that same type of athleticism after breaking his leg. So it's good to hear that he looks really good out there practicing with the Pistons. And the final thing in this quote, saying he expects Jaden Ivey to be a big part of the team on both sides of the ball. We've had so many discussions about contract extensions. Every time Trajan Langdon is asked about Jaden Ivey, it's always extremely positive. I think Trajan is a big believer in Jaden Ivey. I think he's a player that he really wants him to get to that next level. He really wants him to, possibly be that 20-point per game shooting guard next to Cade Cunningham. But it's really good to hear that he's back working out with the team. He's been medically cleared. There's no issues with his athleticism or if he's laboring anything from that injury. But I did want to bring it to your guys' attention that Trajan Langdon did talk about Jaden Ivey, talked about him getting back on the court and that he's looking good, looking as well as he did before he did get injured. But let me know what you guys think of today's Detroit Pistons Summer League game against the Houston Rockets, and how, Tolu Smith, Donis Jenkins, Ron Holland, Chaz Lanier, Bobby Klitman did. What do you think about the Jaden Ivy quote, the Malik Beasley quote. I'll talk to you guys down below in the comment section. Like always, hope you guys are staying safe. Take care. I'll catch you guys in the next Detroit Pistons post game show. Peace.